Think colored pencils can't capture the intricate beauty of fabric folds? Think again. In this video, I'll show you how to create realistic texture and depth with simple techniques. Get ready to challenge your artistic boundaries and discover the hidden potential of colored pencils. Hi everyone, I'm Lisa Marie. Welcome to my art studio. If you're new here, I've been a professional artist for over a decade, earned a master's in art history, studying the old Renaissance masters in Florence, Italy, and like most artists, I'm socially awkward but love sharing different art techniques and tools. Okay, let's talk about fabric for a minute. It's everywhere, and there are so many different textures and colors in fabric, which makes it such a fun subject to color. While this can be fun, it can also be challenging if you've never colored fabric before. There are lots of twists and turns in fabric folds. What you really need to look at when you color fabric is its structure. Is it laying flat and straight with just a few wrinkles, or is it full of big folds? There's also the texture. Is it smooth or fuzzy or somewhere in between? There are even different types of fabric: cotton, silk, linen, lace. So many options, and they all look different. Despite all these differences, there are some common concepts that will help you color fabric. First, there's choosing color. When you start coloring for realism, you should start your palette with 3 basic colors: dark, medium, and light. Let's take blue, for example. If the fabric is blue, then you'll start with shades of dark, medium, and light blue. You can expand your colors from there, but those 3 colors are your foundation. You'll put the dark blue in the darkest sections of the fabric, the medium blue in the mid-tone areas. This color is the bridge that connects the darkest areas to the lightest areas. Then, your lightest color will go in the lightest areas of your fabric. If the fabric is really shiny, like silk is, then it will reflect more light in the brightest areas. So, you will want to put less color in the brightest highlights so they look shinier. Once you have your 3 foundation colors for your fabric, then expand your color palette. Perhaps put a complementary color in the darkest shadow areas. Complementary colors are opposite each other on the color wheel. Going back to the idea of blue fabric, a complementary color would be orange or brown. When you mix complementary colors, it will push your shadows to be darker and will give them a stronger sense of depth. You can also pick other colors to blend with your midtones and highlights. It's great to blend colors to make the fabric more visually interesting, but that means you are going to need to layer colored pencils. That brings us to the second tip for coloring fabric: layer your colors. To layer colored pencils, you need to be gentle with the pencils. A heavy hand is not good here. So to start, you will lay down a foundation layer of color. This can be the dark, medium, and light colors again, but they will just go on that paper gently. That first layer of color can look rough. That's good. That means it isn't filling the tooth or texture of the paper. Once you have gently colored on that first rough layer of color, then add a second layer of color right over the first layer. It can be the same colors as the first layer, or you can mix it up with different colors in the palette that you created. Then you can go back with another layer of colors. Put them right over the first 2 layers. Some things to keep in mind when layering colors are to be gentle. Remember, you don't want to fill in the tooth of the paper too soon, or the paper won't be able to hold extra pigments of color. Also, the way you apply color matters. Try to apply the color in gentle circles instead of just a bunch of straight lines. Those soft circles of color will blend together more smoothly with each additional layer of color that you add. This is about blending and flowing transitions of color. Side note, my favorite colored pencils for coloring fabric are Prismacolor pencils. They're a very popular brand of pencil. They're not the cheapest, but they're also not the most expensive pencils out there. Their colors are smooth, vibrant, and blend together easily, which makes for great color transitions. I'll put a direct link to them in this video's description if you want to add them to your art studio. The third concept is lighting. Before you color your fabric, take a look at the image and figure out where the light is coming from. That's your light source, and it will determine where the highlights and shadows will be in those fabric folds. If your light source is coming overhead, then the darkest shadows will be directly underneath the image. If the light source is somewhere to the left, then the darkest shadows will be over in the right side. Also, remember that fabric folds cast shadows. They're like rolling hills or sharp mountains in the landscape. They have height and dimension that plays with light, and each fold will have its own shadows and highlights. Once you've figured out the light source, then block out shadows. You can do this with the darkest color in your palette as long as you remember the first rule of layering colors. Be gentle! We aren't filling in the paper tooth. Blocking out the shadows will help you start the creation of depth in the fabric folds and help map out where the light is coming from. Remember, the type of fabric will also determine how it plays with light. Silk is shiny, so the highest points of fabric folds reflect more light and look brighter. The highest point of silk folds would then have very little color, or they are completely white. Suede or cotton fabric aren't as shiny as silk. The tops of their folds reflect less light, so they can have more color in their highest areas, and there can be less pure white in those highlights. Or is the fabric fuzzy? The same concept still applies. Folds in fuzzy fabric are still like hills. They have darker areas and lighter areas. You can still block out the darker areas with a gentle layer of the darker color in your palette. The difference with fuzzy fabric is that those individual fuzzy strands will each catch the light separately. So after you block out the initial shadows, you may have to change your gesture a bit. That means the way you apply color. No more gentle circles of color. Now you can apply the color in little lines or dashes. Each line of color will be a bit of fuzz in the fabric. You will layer your colors the same way and still keep track of how the light affects each fold of fabric. But you will apply the color in dashes to create a fuzzy texture. Speaking of texture, that's the fourth concept for coloring fabric folds. Is it smooth or fuzzy, dull or shiny? I've been talking about texture throughout this video, but it bears repeating. Pay attention to the texture of the fabric. That will affect how you apply your color and how it interacts with the light. Most fabric is smooth, so you'll apply the color pencil in smooth little circles. Fuzzy texture will probably need to be applied in small dashes to create a fuzzy look. The texture of a fabric will determine if it needs less color in the highest parts of the fabric folds or more color. Also, you can lose some sense of texture in the darkest areas of a fabric. In the darkest shadows, maybe you can't really see that texture as much. That's okay. That's normal. Let's recap. To color fabric, you need to choose a color palette, starting with dark, medium, and light colors. You need to figure out your light source so you can gently block out your shadows. And you need to check out the texture of the fabric to figure out how you'll apply the colored pencils on the paper, and you're probably going to be layering those colored pencils too. That's a lot to figure out. Remember, it's okay to test all of this out on scrap paper first. You don't have to charge in with all these concepts. Test your colors. How do they look when they are all blended together in layers? Toss a shirt on a bed and shine a light on it. How do the folds look with the light pointed at the folds of fabric? And test your hand gestures on scrap paper too. Soft circles, short dashes, longer lines. How do they each look when you layer them? you can absolutely practice before you start coloring the final image. And that's it for today. Be sure to like and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss the next video. And as always, stay creative.